So the first album I ever bought, well, I didn't buy it, but my parents bought me a Beatles album, and it was for Christmas. And I can remember I was so excited, I couldn't wait till Christmas to get it, and I forced them to give me it early. And I played it and played it and played it and played it, and it was the most fantastic thing I'd ever heard. And then from that, I sort of graduated on to Jefferson Airplane and the Mamas and Papas, and I went through a phase of lots of American stuff. And then I kind of came back to British music again, because there was a whole folk revival went on in the 70s some point, and you had Fairport Convention, you had Steel Eye Span, Tim Hart and Maddie Pryor, you had all these incredible things going on. And then you had James Taylor, Livingston Taylor. I recorded one of his songs for my first ever recording. That and Only Love Can Break Your Heart, the Neil Young song. That album had just come out and it hadn't been hugely successful yet. And so we heard the song and we thought, let's make that our record. So yeah, lots of interesting, wonderful music in my life. I've been really fortunate. And I think it's coming round again now that there's going to be lots more exciting stuff happening. More melodic, interesting, fusion kind of stuff. Well, in the 70s, there was this sort of resurgence of English folk music. I'd always had Scottish folk music and Irish folk music as a kind of baseline, because my family, that was the background, Irish, Scottish. And we did lots of singing at family parties and things like that. And I was really into soul music, actually, because being a port, Glasgow used to get all the music over from America. If you lived in Edinburgh, you got things like Genesis and kind of Poncy music like that, we used to say. But in Glasgow, it was like really gritty stuff. So my second band, really, I suppose, Cado Bell, we were really into that whole kind of funk American thing. And at the same time, I was really into, I bought a Tom Rush album, who was an American folk singer, and he had this song Circle Game on it, and I thought, that's a really great song, where did that come from? Noticed Joni Mitchell, then started searching for her stuff and found her first album, which was very folky. And round about the same time, you had Fairport Convention doing some of her songs. You had Steel Eye Span coming out, you had sort of loads of really interesting kind of English folk music where they were actually taking really old songs like Lord Ranald and things like that, and they were kind of changing them and making them very current musically. So there was this whole kind of crossover of music. I didn't ever do folk music as a gig, ever, but it was a thing that it was my guilty pleasure. It was my guilty pleasure that I had at home that I would listen to. And then I remember going to see a Blodwyn Pig gig. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I went to see them, and I went to see Tyrannosaurus Rex, the original, when it was just the two of them. I went to see that in Glasgow, and I was really into knitting and crocheting and things like that at that time. And I sat up the back knitting a shawl. And my claim to fame was that Mark Bolan dedicated a song to me because I was knitting. And I've still got the shawl. It was purple and it's huge. And it still sits in my house. And every time I look at it, I think, Mark Bolan saw me knit that. And it's kind of a cool idea. But no, I just love music. I love all sorts of things. And I keep saying to younger guys and my son when he was growing up, I would say, I was really fortunate in that when the Beatles albums came out, it was like nothing you'd ever heard before. Nobody had ever heard those sounds, guitar sounds like that, vocals like that. And so it was like really new, and it just blew your mind. It was like, wow, what is this? And then you had all the stuff coming from America, like Jefferson Airplane, and it was like, this is incredibly crazy music, and I love it. You just couldn't get enough of it. And unfortunately, I don't think there is that now, because I think all those things happened. You had like King Crimson, Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, all these amazing things. And now there's not any space for anything new at the moment. And so people seem to be going back and taking little bits from maybe their parents' or their grandparents' record collection and a little bit of a tune, and they'll go, I'm going to develop that. And so now they develop those things rather than start them from new. And that's a little bit of a shame, and it's good as well because it means that the stories still go on, and a lot of people now refer back to the original music, and so that's all coming back into vogue again. I just don't know where music's going to go, and I'll be interested to find out. Hopefully I'll be around long enough to find out where it goes. But it's all interesting, and most types of music I can find something I like. The beginning of the 90s, I was doing lots of work with, when I wrote Touch and stuff, we were doing lots of work and made the Echoes album, and it was all over Scandinavia. So I was working there an awful lot, and I would take different guitarists from London because I lived there at the time, and my guitarist would be off doing something else. I'd go, okay, and we'd find someone else and take them and, rehearse and then go to do the shows. I remember working with this guy. He was the most amazing acoustic guitar player. And we got there and I said to him, can you kind of James Taylor that a wee bit more, make it more kind of sprongly and really interesting acoustic guitar? And he looked at me and he went, who's James Taylor? And I was like, what? You're a guitarist and you don't know who James Taylor is? This was like, I couldn't believe it. I've got this kind of weird, very fortunate thing that when I started, a lot of the people who were working around me and worked with me or whatever, they all went on to do things like, my mate Gunji was Kate Bush's sound engineer for most of her career. And so he would be doing that, and it would be like, okay, well, we're going to do this gig, come along. So you would go and hear all this amazing stuff right at the beginning. And like, he then worked with Devo. So we all went to see Devo, oh God, that's brilliant. It was just like all these different things mixed up. And my husband, he's worked with like from Stevie Wonder to Talking Heads and various combinations and stuff. And you just go, I'll go and have a listen to that. And it really was very fortunate because a lot of people wouldn't have heard all the different varieties of music, And so I was quite lucky. And then Stuart, the guy I write with, he worked with Diana Ross, he worked with all sorts of huge American acts, he worked with Rod Stewart, he worked with Rick Astley, just like all sorts of people. And so you would just go and book the gigs, and it was like, yes.